What's up, everybody? I am your host, a frantic doctor with a gun, extra bullets, and a mission to kill my former patient. And that is my co host, a silent, mentally unstable killing machine that's obsessed with murdering his sister. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate's final Halloween episode, where we are picking up right where we left off last year as we talk about Rick Rosenthal's Halloween 2 from 1981. So we have finally reached the end of our Halloween episodes. For us, it is always bittersweet, but we really hope that we helped you guys get into the Halloween spirit this year and made your October even more spooky, especially those of you who live in different countries that don't necessarily celebrate Halloween like we do here in the US. So, yeah, we hope you enjoyed this year's episodes, but it is soon time to move on. And for us, it is time to start planning what we're going to cover for Turkey Day.
Yeah, definitely kind of bummed that we're at the last Halloween episode. This
Yeah.
is my absolute favorite time of year.
Yep.
There's a handful of movies that I think about covering 15 times throughout the year, and then I remember they're an October only movie, so we've had to literally go out and list the movies that we can't cover until this time of year. But yeah, looking forward to Turkey Day. I do have Poltergeist.
I think that's probably going to be it.
There
I think
there
that's going to be the pick.
there's Thanksgiving 3, which is actually
Yeah,
Thanksgiving 2.
I don't know. We'll see what we'll do about that because I'm not excited about it being mostly puppets.
Can we just do like a Thanksgiving watch through episode? I would
Or maybe,
I would do that. I would be down to do that on like Patreon.
may,
Watch Thanksgiving with us.
maybe we could. I don't know how, but maybe we could do like where it streams. It's like a live stream thing or something where
Yeah.
you can join in and watch how awful this movie is with us. I don't know. I have to look into that.
We got lucky last year with Thanksgiving
Yeah, we did.
and Eli Roth coming through with a banger of a Thanksgiving slasher.
Yep.
In my opinion, the best Thanksgiving slasher by far. There's not a lot to choose from.
No,
Him cooking that bitch in the oven like a turkey and stuffing her
that's
was
grade
just
A.
like,
Yeah,
it's,
grade A.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't get no better than that.
So anyway, Halloween 2. I haven't seen this movie in about maybe 6 or 7 years. I found that I had actually forgotten a bunch of stuff from this, but when I first dove into my research, I found that this movie has some haters.
Mm,
Some people that aren't fans of this one. There are quite a few people who really dislike this, and it of course gets compared a lot with the original, but it's definitely a different film. I do see some of the complaints with it, but it was 3 years into, like, this slasher boom, and it was a different time, which required a different movie.
yeah.
So, I personally found some stuff I really liked and some stuff that I didn't like, which we'll dive into later, but I'm not a hater of this movie.
Yeah, my biggest complaint for this movie is always that I thought of this one as the hospital Halloween.
A lot of people, a
That's
lot of people hate this setting. That is a
that
big complaint from people.
yes, I hate the setting. I don't hate the movie, but I do hate the setting, and we'll talk about that more as we get into the movie, but I definitely think that 90% of the movie taking place in a hospital really takes away that
Halloween feel?
the
Mm.
Halloween, October, fall vibes that shine so bright in the original. We don't get that. But then there is also some things I really love about this. Like you were talking about how this, took place after the boom that the original created and that slashers had, gone really, really heavy into gore. by this point, and I really credit John Carpenter and Deborah Hill for incorporating some of that gore and realizing where the times have went. And instead of making this movie that would have probably fell flat with a lot of the people who fell in love with slashers that came out after the original, they were able to put something in there, but they didn't overdo it to a point where it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's definitely got its own flavor. Because I had forgotten, quite a few things from this movie, I dove into my research and I discovered, there's a lot of fans that really like this one, there's a lot of fans that don't. So I was like, "Shit, I can't remember, how I felt about it." So I kinda went into it this time with a clean slate, and there are some things that I'm excited to talk about and some things I'm excited to talk shit about. But I did come out with a more favorable opinion when it comes to kinda which side do you land on. I definitely don't, really dislike this movie, but there are some things that I, really don't like about it. It's 'cause there's a couple things here and there that just didn't work for me, but, yeah, we're gonna dive into it.
For me, it's mainly the setting, but I do praise this movie on the continuity of a lot of things. They were able to bring back Donald Pleasance, which was huge, Jamie Lee Curtis. Those 2 are the main people from the first one, so being able to get them back, they were able to get Dean Cundey, who was the original cinematographer, and I think that really, really, really changed this movie, and it made it feel enough like the original to feel like a proper sequel and still shine in that regard. And it obviously did good enough where it spawned the franchise. Had this movie came out and just been dog shit and garbage, we probably wouldn't have the Halloween franchise that we all love.
Didn't he pass up working with Toby Hooper on the Poltergeist to do this movie?
Yeah, yeah, he had just met with Steven Spielberg, actually, and his agent called and, he told his agent he had just met with Steven Spielberg, and his agent had mentioned a Halloween 2, and he had no idea that that was even a thing that had been in the works, and he turned down Poltergeist to do this movie kind of out of, like, a respect and, kind of like he felt like he owed it to Deborah Hill and John Carpenter because they really sprung his career with doing the first, and I found out he did a lot of John Carpenter movies.
Yeah.
He did The Thing, which is fantastic. He did Escape from New York. He went on
It's actually
to
written by fucking Nick Castle.
yeah, yeah, crazy, crazy
Cool little
coincidences
cool little
there.
circle of very talented people there.
Yeah, he did The Fog, which was one that was in development at the same time as Halloween 2,
Yep.
created a lot of controversy behind the scenes of trying to get this movie made, but he also went on to do movies like, he did all 3 of the Back to the Future, which in cinema history, outside of horror, I love those movies, like,
Dude, yeah,
that's
dude kills it, man. Back
yeah,
to the Future is a fantastic trilogy that should never be touched again.
yeah.
It's just that good. I'm sure if it was, a little more scarier, Blumhouse would be trying to get their hands on Back
Oh,
to the
oh,
Future
yeah.
reboot.
He did the original Jurassic Park too.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that that's not just scary enough for Blumhouse to try to fuck that up
they're
too.
still pumping them things out. So heads up, we are gonna head on over to the Patreon for another little Halloween after show where we talk a little bit more about the movie and some other things. So join us over there. If you haven't quite had your Grindhouse Syndicate fill yet, it's kind of like a Grindhouse dessert, just to kind of finish the meal off.
It's the whipped cream and cherry on top.
So, with that being said, are you ready to head back to Haddonfield and dive into Halloween 2?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about, or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at Grindhouse.Syndicate.Horror.Pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes, as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to get hit by a car, slammed into a van that explodes and burns us to a crisp, give us a review. Halloween 2 is a 1981 American slasher film directed by Rick Rosenthal. It was written/produced by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, and stars Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance, who of course reprised their roles as Laurie Strode and Dr. Sam Loomis. It is the second installment in the Halloween film series and serves as a direct sequel to Halloween from 1978. The story picks up right after the events of the first film, with Michael Myers tracking survivor Laurie Strode down, who is receiving treatment at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, while Sam Loomis continues his search for Michael around the town with the help of the police. It was released on October 30th, 1981. It had a budget of $2.5 million and a box office of $25.5 million. A pretty decent return, but it didn't come close to the original, which made around $70 million.
Yeah. Imagine what 70 million for inflation was if
Yeah.
that came out today.
So after the smashing success of the original, producer Mustafa Akkad really wanted a sequel in order to rake in that sweet, sweet cash.
This is Jason Blum's dad.
But the only problem was John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote the original story as a standalone film and had no interest in bringing the boogeyman back to life. But all that changed one day when someone mentioned to John Carpenter that he should at least stay on as a producer, which, after pondering it for a few days, changed his mind because he figured that this would help him recoup some of the money he felt that he was shorted from the success of the original and allow him to give another up-and-coming director a shot at the big time like Halloween did for him. The only problem was he had no idea what the story would be about. Once he began writing, he had no idea which direction to take the story, so he ended up drinking a 6-pack of beer a day for inspiration, and after being inspired by Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, he came up with what would become one of the worst ideas in the whole franchise. Michael and Laurie are actually brother and sister, something that I personally hate. And apparently Carpenter also hates. He has called it stupid and silly and foolish many times. But it kind of plagued the franchise for a while.
Yeah, I don't hate that they're brother and sister. I'm not one of those people who were like just completely against that idea. But yeah, if your inspiration there is Star Wars and being a alcoholic, that probably not a lot of good ideas coming from that.
I wouldn't hate it if it was hinted at or, an idea from the original. Like they gave us little hints or something in the first one and then they reveal it in the second one. But the way they ended up doing it is, it ended up looking exactly like what it was, which was just an idea you pulled out of your ass because you don't have any more ideas.
Well, it worked really good for Star Wars. Like it did. It was
It did.
something that was not in the original in part 1, like it wasn't thought of, and The Empire Strikes Back came out and people people fucking shit themselves when that came out. Like, it was amazing. It was a crazy plot twist that nobody seen coming. Unfortunately, in this one, I guess it just didn't grab enough attention. It kinda fell flat for what he was hoping for.
Well, Star Wars did it a little differently. I think the reason why it worked for one and not the other is because in Star Wars there was some mystique, with Luke's dad. We know he fought in this war and, he died by the hands of this Vader. They planted just enough of a seed to reveal that in the second one. We didn't really get that here in Halloween. So he originally planned to set the story a few years later where Michael tracks Laurie down in her new place located in a high-rise apartment building, but this setting would later be changed to a hospital as we are all aware. So he also ended up changing his mind and decided to set the story directly after the events of the first film. Now, if you remember from our episode last year, Carpenter and Hill planned on making Halloween into an anthology series. So, the deal was that Halloween 2 would be the end of the Myers, Strode, and Loomis story. And then the next film, the third one, would be something completely different, which is how we ended up with Season of the Witch and why Michael and Loomis die in the end of this one. But that was kind of the deal Carpenter offered, like, "We'll write it, we'll do it, but the next one has gotta be different," which we've talked about that in our Season of the Witch episode, where that idea would've worked if you would've done that in the second movie. It was weird that you did it in the
Yeah.
third.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Yeah, it definitely didn't work, but unfortunately, there was higher powers with a lot of money that were not gonna let that happen. I'm glad they didn't let it happen because we would not have the Michael Myers part of the franchise.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have that. But at the same time, I think John Carpenter was right in that there was no way to top and capture the same magic that you captured with the first one.
Yeah,
The
it's already out of the bottle.
Yeah, there was this magic there, and it happened, and there's no way to essentially capture that magic back. Also, part of me loves that it took place directly after, but I do think that this movie could have been better had it been the next Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, I did kinda ponder that a little bit and, think what I think would have been better, but it's hard for me to say. It is. I mean, I really like both ideas.
I
I don't really like one over the other. I do love in this movie, though, when they start out directly after, we do get to see the aftermath of the first film, and I like that. I
I
really
do.
like that.
I enjoy that. That's one thing I really like about this movie is how it literally picks up directly at the end of where the first one ended. But at the same time, when you do that, you really tie your hands with a
Yeah.
lot of things like the setting. I mean, the setting of this movie, which to me is the biggest knock on the movie by far, is that it loses a lot of its Halloween feel because it takes place in a dark hospital the whole time. And had you did it the next year, like he went after Laurie, like he escaped and got away, or they thought he was dead or something, whatever the story is, and he comes back the next Halloween and goes after Laurie, then you have essentially an endless blank book to write the story with, whereas doing it directly after your hands are really tied.
Or, what about this idea? Michael lives in the sewer, passes his power to a young guy who then tries to be Michael Myers.
Yeah, yeah, a young guy who beats him up and takes his mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful.
Oh,
That
that's not
was
good?
that was I don't get if you watch the credits of Halloween and you see all the people who worked on that movie. The fact that that even was a thing, especially with as many, like, producers and high up people, nobody was like, "Hey, this is awful. We can't do this. Like, this is not how we end this trilogy," which up until that point was not a bad trilogy. Like, the Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, there is some things that I love about those movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but that last one was so bad, it's really kinda soured the entire trilogy for me. It's like, how do you end it on that?
Well, it definitely knocked a couple bucks off of the trilogy box set.
Yeah,
I honestly have pondered actually doing Halloween Ends for Terror or Error, but I don't know if it's too soon. It might
it's
be too soon. The wounds are still too fresh, but I feel like that episode would be just us just, you know, ridiculing this movie for an
yeah.
hour.
I have yet to go back and watch it again, and I really need to go back and watch it with just a clean mindset, but I had a really clean mindset going into it. Like, I didn't have overly high hopes because there was things I loved and things I didn't in the second one. And, I really need to go back and watch it, and I'm sure if we did an episode like that, we would have to watch it with a clean slate, but I just can't imagine knowing what I know, ever looking back at that and being like, "Okay, well, I see what they were doing here. This isn't as bad as I thought." I just fucking hate it, man.
Well, if you guys wanna hear us do an episode of Terror or Error on it, let us know. I guess that could we do have one coming up, so, I mean, that could happen.
I would completely be open to covering the 2018 or Halloween Kills. Both movies I thought did some really good things. I think Halloween Kills opens with one of the
Oh, it's
coolest kill
fantastic.
scenes
Mhm.
that is in the entire
It's the
franchise.
highlight of that movie.
When he kills the firefighters, like, for that being an opening scene was amazing. But I have kinda shied away from mentioning those 2 just because the last one is just so bad.
So, Carpenter wanted Tommy Lee Wallace, who, worked on the first film and went on to direct Halloween 3. He wanted him to direct this one. But according to Wallace, once he read the script, he passed, believing it to be not very good and predictable. His words, not mine. And he felt that the film should be more like the original with less gore and more suspense. Now, this doesn't mean that Carpenter didn't agree with him on that, but he knew that it would be hard for Halloween to compete with what slashers had become in the early 80s, including boobs, gore, and more kills. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we're looking at. He wasn't completely wrong. The movie came out in 1981. Literally one of the best years in all of horror cinema. Some movies that came out that year was like The Burning, Friday the 13th Part 2, My Bloody Valentine, which is a underrated movie, as we said many times. Maniac came out then, Prom Night, Final Exam, just to name a few. That's not even all of them that came out.
Yeah, as far as slashers go, I think 81 takes the cake for slashers.
Huge year. Huge year. So, after Wallace turned the movie down, Rick Rosenthal was chosen to direct, which would be his first ever feature length film. So, now let's talk about Michael Myers real quick. So, for anybody that might wonder why Michael looks a little different in the sequel, it is because Nick Castle did not return for this one. Apparently, at the time, he was busy writing some scripts, including Escape from New York and also getting his directing career started. But they did use the same mask, which there are a lot of things that's kind of bouncing around about like what actually happened to the mask between 1 and 2. Some say Castle, put it in his pocket between takes and, that messed the paint and stuff up. Other people say Deborah Hill stored it under her bed and her chain smoking caused it to, like, kinda yellow and stuff a little bit. But the main reason was because the new Michael Myers had a differently shaped head, and the mask just didn't, like, fit on his face the same as it did Nick Castle's. That's the biggest issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's what it comes down to. I know a lot of people have talked about, I think Deborah Hill did keep it stashed under her bed, but a lot of people talk about, like, the Nick Castle putting it in his back pocket, and it kinda bent the mask up, but the mask looks consistent throughout the first movie, so I think it would if the mask got bent throughout the first movie, it would have slowly morphed into the wider looking face that we get in part 2. So I don't think that's a thing. I think it's just if you look at Nick Castle, he has a very narrow face,
Yeah, and that's a huge,
and
huge difference for masks. It's
yeah.
hard to realize it, but, like, because we put our masks on the, mannequin heads or whatever, and I didn't know this until we started, doing this years ago, but, a lot of people stuff, like, paper and stuff in there to get the mask shape, because even though, like, it's like a replica of a mask from a movie, if you don't kinda do that face shape, it's not gonna look like it does in the movie. It looks slightly different.
Yeah, this mask, people gotta realize this was a cheap Captain Kirk mask. It was a Don Post mask. Like, it wasn't bad, but it's bigger than the head that it has to go on. I don't think that there was a whole lot of high-end mask making back then either.
Yeah, probably not.
So, yeah, the shape of the face that it's going on is going to drastically change the look of the mask.
Yeah, and compared to, what we've got in many of the sequels after, this looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, this was, I mean, it was the same mask, so that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal, we know, because when you look at, 4 or 5 and 6, those masks, I mean, 4 is pretty bad.
Yeah,
I think
very.
it goes down as, like, the alien mask. K and B did a couple that were just awful. I think we talked about that last week when we talked about
We did,
K
yeah.
and B doing the ghost face
Mhm.
before the Fun World deal was actually struck and went through, and they just have a history of not doing masks very well. They did the new Jason
Jason
mask,
Universe mask.
yeah, they also did the mask for, uh, Jason Goes to Hell, which has a different shade. I think they worked a little bit on the Jason X mask, which coincidentally to me looks more along the lines of the Jason Universe mask that just came out as far as shape. I mean, before Uber Jason,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
regular
yeah.
Jason's fit, like the nose doesn't have that same dimension that it had prior. But yeah, the mask definitely, I don't think any of them even came close until the new trilogy. And I will say the new trilogy, that is the best part, I think, of that entire trilogy was the look of Michael Myers. They really got that down.
Definitely. So, a stunt performer named Dick Warlock, which, super cool last name, really wanted to play Michael. So, one day he saw the mask sitting on a table. He put it on. He walked into Rick Rosenthal's office and just stood there, silently staring at him. After a few minutes of this, he finally took the mask off and asked if he could play Michael, and Rosenthal said after that, absolutely. So, once a script was written, a director was hired, and the roles cast, Halloween 2 began filming in Los Angeles, with most scenes taking place at the real life Morningside Hospital and the Pasadena Community Hospital located in Pasadena. Now, considering this movie picks up right where the other one left off, Rosenthal attempted to recreate the elements and themes from the original film, including visual elements like killer POV, shots of long corridors, and moody dark lighting. But one of the main differences is Michael is the central feature of a majority of these scenes. A lot different than the first.
Yeah, if you watched the first, one thing I had never noticed until we did our deep dive is Michael is creeping in
The
the
background.
background
Uh-huh.
of the first half of this movie. Almost every shot with Laurie Strode, the car is, you see it 3 or 4 blocks down sitting there. They did such a good job, and it's something that I never noticed, that Michael is always there and he's always watching, and that couldn't be done in this movie.
That is one of the reason that's probably the main that's this I'd say the second. That is the second thing that makes me really love the original over this one. I love that version of Michael better, him just back there. Um, I would say the number one thing though is the Halloween vibe with the
Yeah.
trick or treating and all that stuff. That's the number one, but number two is Michael just being in the background, which this movie lacked. Now, I'm not saying I don't dislike what this movie did. I think it's cool that these movies kind of complement each other, where one went this direction and the other one went this direction, but they're both done good.
I think that's a testament to John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. John Carpenter not wanting to do a second one, but once he had to write a second one, he knew its limitations and that it could not be exactly what the first one was, especially with you named all those bangers like slashers had taken off. 81 was the best year for slashers. People had gotten accustomed to very gory, like the slashers being a central character of the movie. And that's not how the original Halloween was written. And imagine if you're a moviegoer who has fallen in love with slasher movies and 1981 hits, and all year you've had all these bangers come out, and you go to watch Halloween 2 and there's no gore. The killer is very seldomly shown until the very end. You would probably leave a little disappointed. So for him to realize it could not be exactly what the first one was, and that there had to be some gore, but not overdo it so much that it wasn't a Halloween sequel, huge props to them for walking that tightrope and doing it successfully.
So, after 6 weeks, filming wrapped and the project headed into post production, with John Carpenter taking over editing after very much disliking Rosenthal's version. Because remember, Rosenthal wanted to keep it like minimum gore and no nudity. Carpenter hated this idea, believing that it would cause Halloween 2 to bomb at the box office when put up against other slashers like Friday the 13th Part 2. This is what he had to say about the matter. Quote, I had no influence over the direction of the film. I had an influence in the post production. I saw a rough cut of Halloween 2 and it wasn't scary. It was about as scary as Quincy, which I had to look that up. I guess that was like a TV show. So we had to do some post production work to bring it at least up to par with the competition. End quote. So, this caused Carpenter to refilm some of the kills, adding more gruesome deaths and definitely more blood, along with cutting some of the slower parts of the movie and speeding up the pacing. And needless to say, this did not sit well with Rosenthal, who claimed, quote, Carpenter ruined my carefully paced film. Another really important thing he added was how Michael tracked Laurie to the hospital, which is that scene where he runs into the kid with the radio.
Yeah, that was a reshoot, and, I guess Carpenter was like, how would Michael know that she was at the hospital? And I guess they shot that scene to kinda show us how and what led him exactly to get to the hospital. The first kill in the movie is a reshoot. I think a couple of the kills were actually reshoots,
Yeah.
and like I said, that was Carpenter realizing that the tides had really changed as far as slashers go, and that we had to have some killing in this
Yeah,
movie.
definitely. So, after all that drama and Carpenter reworking the film, it was picked up by Universal and released on October 30th of 1981 on 1,211 screens, where it grossed 7.4 million on its opening weekend, making it number 1 at the box office. Even though it didn't do as good as the original, it was still a success in its own right, with the earnings beating out most of the other slasher films released in 81, including Friday the 13th Part 2. Another interesting thing that happened was in 1982, 1 year later, a man named Richard Delmer Boyer murdered an elderly couple in Fullerton, California named Francis and Aline Harbitz. The couple were stabbed 43 times by Boyer, and according to the trial transcripts, his defense was that he suffered from hallucinations brought on by the movie Halloween 2. Now, the crazy part is the film was played for the jury and a psychologist who pointed out various similarities between its scenes and the vision the defendant described. But he was still found guilty and sentenced to death. It's also important to know when this event happened, he was under the influence of PCP, marijuana, and alcohol.
Yep. Yep. That sounds about right. Getting high on PCP and murdering people, trying to use a movie as a scapegoat as your defense does not take responsibility away from you because you just I mean, that's about as good of a defense as saying I was high on PCP. I didn't know what I was doing.
You got to call the Warrens and the devil made me do it. It
Yeah.
wasn't me.
Yeah, they'll get you off.
This of course ignited the I don't know if this was the beginning of it or not, I'm not sure, but this ignited the whole horror movies are, too violent and we need to get rid of them. But there was a lot of pushback even from like doctors and stuff. So that battle was fought, which it would return again in the 90s after Columbine. I think it might be kind of done with today at this point. I don't know, it
I
could start back up.
It'll return, man. We've unfortunately seen this with movies, then it was music, or music, then movies. I don't know what started first.
It's all the things I like.
Music came back again after Columbine. Video games as they went after that. Anything that they can find to try to put a blame on these awful things. And what it really comes down to is we have a lot of people that live in our country, and you're going to have some really fucked up things happen. I think a lot of every one of those cases can be tracked back to mental health and somebody's situations, their particular, like how they were raised or the cards that they were dealt. And you combine that with bad mental health and things, and trying to have a scapegoat for that has always been a thing. I think there's some religion behind that too. People who don't like horror movies and
Satanic panic.
didn't like heavy hard rock. Used to look at that as like, the devil's music and violent video games. It seems to me that a lot of the groups pushing behind those things are religious groups.
Why don't they go after trunk or treats?
Yeah.
That's what you need to be worried about.
My son's trunk or treat caused him to grow up and be a cannibal.
How many murderers went to trunk or treats? That's what we need to look into.
This guy was murdering women and putting them in his trunk.
For treats.
Exactly. He had candy in his trunk, and then he put her in the trunk, and then he ate the candy and ate her.
He cut her body up in tiny pieces and put it in the candy wrappers and handed it out to kids. And razor blades.
From his trunk.
And they also had like razor blades in them.
And drugs. Don't forget the drugs.
And drugs.
People spend a lot of money on drugs to get them away for free.
Give them out to kids. All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, a devastating 34%. IMDb, a 6.5 out of 10. Letterboxd, no surprise, sitting at a 3.2 out of 5. That's like their average rating. And the Google average audience rating is a 3.9 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it for rent on Google Play, Apple TV, and Fandango for $3.99, or with certain subscriptions on Amazon, AMC Plus, Peacock, Roku, YouTube, and Sling TV. Are you ready to dive into the plot of Halloween 2?
I am ready.
All right, so we start off by watching the last few minutes of the first film where Michael attacks Laurie upstairs when suddenly Dr. Loomis runs in and shoots him 6 times. And we know this because he says it about 600 times throughout this movie.
Yes.
I shot him 6 times! 6
Yeah.
times!
I wonder if Dr. Loomis, like at some point in his time, his 15 years with Michael Myers, had just like assumed that Michael had become this pure evil and there was some like paranormal behind it. And this was like proof. Like, I've been telling you guys for years, he's
Yeah,
pure evil.
there's a story there.
Like, yeah, he's definitely and he's probably in the process of writing his book by this point, so he's stoked on this. He's like, "Dude, my book's gonna be, like, New York Times bestseller, like, every book that comes out
Yeah.
somehow."
He's gonna title it, I shot him 6 times. So after being shot 6 times, Michael stumbles back and falls off the balcony, landing on the grass below. But when Loomis runs down, he finds that Michael is now gone without a trace and has now vanished somewhere in the neighborhood. I love Loomis's interaction with the neighbor. He's like, "Is this a joke? I have been trick-or-treated to death tonight." And Loomis is like, "You don't know what death is."
Yeah,
And
that's
then the music kicks in.
such a Dr. Loomis thing to say.
Yeah.
I love Dr. Loomis dipping his hand in the blood and looking at it, and I just imagine Dr. Loomis, like, smelling and tasting it and being like, "Yep, that's Michael." You know, because he's all about being, like, the expert on Michael Myers.
Tastes like evil.
I'm the only one who truly knows Michael Myers, like, he's evil, and it's like those, like, Bigfoot experts, like, they pick up a piece of shit, and they smell it, and they taste it a little bit, and,
He's
"Yep,
like
this is a Bigfoot."
he's like pouring that stuff in like a Michael footprint. It's like measuring it like, this is Michael. This is his shoe size. So after that, we then get a black screen with a jack-o'-lantern glowing with the words Halloween 2 next to it, along with that classic Carpenter score. As we then see the credits flash across the screen, we slowly zoom into the pumpkin when suddenly the face opens up, revealing an evil-looking human skull.
Love it.
Yep. Good
Love
intro.
Love the intro, love that they kept the same title card intro stuff that they had in the original. It is super Halloween, like, anybody who watches the original Halloween every October like we do, just gets that feeling when they see that black screen and the orange lettering and then the cool fucking jack-o'-lantern, and I love the skull part.
Yeah, good addition. So after that, we then get the awesome killer POV, which you guys know we love, as Michael roams through the back alleyways of the neighborhood trying to escape Loomis and the police that have just arrived. Eventually, Michael discovers an open back door to an elderly couple's home where he sneaks inside and steals a butcher knife, leaving behind a few drops of blood on the counter. I also want to point out we get another movie featuring the Night of the Living Dead on TV. I think we've brought this up quite a few times.
Yep, it's that free,
Yep.
that freebie.
I can't remember what they did it in Files something which kind of caused anybody to be able to use it.
Yeah, fuck, what do they call that?
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
Like licensing?
yeah, it's still licensing, but, I forget what they call it, like, free trademark or something. It's not quite that, but yeah, essentially, it's like songs and movies that are essentially free to use because something wasn't legally filed as it should have been.
Yep. While this is happening, we also get a news report that the police have discovered the bodies of Annie, Linda, and Bob and are currently searching the area for the suspect. After stealing the knife, Michael discovers another teenage girl at home alone. just right next door, which prompts him to watch her through the window for a bit before breaking in. We then cut to this soon to be dead teenage girl as she talks to one of her friends on the phone about the murders that just happened a few blocks away. But right as her friend tells her that the killer got away, she is startled by a loud noise from the back of the house. And right as she goes to investigate, Michael pops up and stabs her in the chest with the butcher knife, killing her pretty much instantly. Michael did not lay low for long. He's
No,
like, I need another kill. I'm fiending. It's only been 30 minutes.
no, definitely didn't wait long. I do love the Michael POV and him creeping in the shadows, and then the shot of him coming through the door in the background. That has that very original Halloween feel that we talked about that a lot of this movie lacks. But this is also some of the bringing on the original cinematographer. You get that feel very early on that the original cinematographer was working on this.
So we then jump back to the Doyle residence where we see the place crawling with first responders and police officers as a dazed Laurie is loaded into an ambulance and taken to the hospital. Now, what's important here is these two paramedics are not just background characters like normal, they are going to be actual characters in this story. The older guy is named Bud, and he is a bit of a slick talking ladies' man. And the younger one is named Jimmy, who actually knows Lori, who goes to school with his brother. We then get a quick little scene of a mother pulling up to the hospital with her young son, who is very much bleeding from the mouth. And judging by that big ass razor blade in between his teeth, I am assuming someone put something in his candy, which I'm pretty sure we've talked about this a few times, like the origins of that rumor on the show before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the little kind of small kinda ode to the razor blade and candy bars rumors that went around for years.
So the reason this was put in was actually because when John Carpenter originally planned for this to be an anthology series, this story was going to be the second Halloween movie about people putting razor blades in candy.
That would have been cool. That would have been cool had he obviously, we got Season of the Witch, which was a great movie,
Mhm.
but had whatever story he had planned for that been part 3, and you'd be able to kinda connect them a little bit like Trick or Treat does with
Yeah,
their
yeah.
stories, how they all connect in the same world.
Love that.
Yeah, that would've been cool.
So next we see Lori finally arrive at the hospital, and it becomes apparent pretty quickly that this place is definitely not fully staffed. There are about 3 nurses and 1 doctor who, I guess, just came from a Halloween party at a country club and he's a little fucked up, a little drunk. So while the nurses work on Lori, Dr. Mixter gives her a sedative to knock her out as they fix her stab wound, which makes Lori a terrible final girl for the rest of this movie, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, Lori seems to be high out of her fucking mind the rest of this
100%.
movie. I always wonder, like, does Laurie Strode remember any of this even taking place?
Good question.
Like, she
Yeah.
literally looks, like, out of it the entire like, even through to the end, she is just it's almost as if she's not even sure if what's happening is real or she's, like, still dreaming.
She's fuckered up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, she's high as hell.
So after that, we then jump to Dr. Loomis, who is still riding around with Sheriff Brackett, very much getting on his nerves, I might add, when suddenly Loomis shouts to stop the car because he has spotted Michael walking down the sidewalk behind some trick-or-treaters. Loomis quickly jumps out of the car, pulling his gun and yelling for the kids to get away, and as he runs towards Michael, we see Michael, who looks a bit confused and startled here, turns around and begins quickly walking the other direction. I just want to point out, this is like, without a doubt, one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. It's so fucking good. So as Brackett and Loomis chase down Michael, who is holding a small bag, he starts walking faster and faster before then attempting to cut across the street. We then see Loomis try to aim his revolver at him while yelling stop, but Brackett grabs his arms and tries to stop him. When suddenly a cop car doing like fucking 50 miles per hour down a residential street with trick-or-treaters everywhere slams on his brakes, but unfortunately it is way too late as we then see the car slam into Michael and then immediately slam into a parked van that must have been like full of fucking C4 because it explodes with like a 40-foot tall fireball.
Yeah, parked in the middle of the road at that.
The cop then jumps out of the car, stumbles to the ground, and as Sheriff Brackett helps him up, he says, "That guy came out of nowhere. I couldn't stop." Came out of nowhere? The dude was fucking almost on the other side of the street. It's not like he just stepped off the sidewalk. And then what about the parked van? Did it
Yeah,
also come out of nowhere?
yeah, despite the guy, regardless, he would have ran into this van.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, this guy was, I think, a little fuckered up, and considering the severity of this accident, the fact that the cop gets out and he's completely fine after just running into a couple 1,000-pound van going fucking fast as fuck, he's completely fine.
Why was he going so fast? There's the
I don't
kids walking
know.
around everywhere, dude.
I assume it's just because of all the panic and mayhem up there being a killer on the loose, and they're probably calling for, all these different, trying to get a perimeter going and lock down this area. But yeah, what was not ignore the fact that Dr. Loomis was gonna murder whoever this was in this movie.
100%.
Like, it did not matter who it was. Dr. Loomis had the sheriff not stopped him, he was going to murder anybody. It
Whoever was under that
could have
mask.
been a like taller 13-year-old kid, and he was going to shoot him. And then, like, after it happens, he kinda has a moment and then jumps in the car with Sheriff
Oh,
Brackett.
none of these people give
Yeah,
a shit that
yeah.
this just happened.
I mean, they are watching somebody burn alive on the front of this cop car, and
They're concerned about the cop who was driving.
and Dr. Loomis is the reason that this what ends up being like a teenager who was just out I mean, he's got a bag of candy in his hand. He obviously turns around and starts walking the other way when Dr. Loomis and his revolver jump out. He is the reason that this person just died a horrible death, and he doesn't give a flying fuck.
And this will not be the only time this happens in this movie.
I wonder if Dr. Loomis skipped over this part in his book.
Yeah, most likely. Or
Or
just blamed it on the
yeah,
cops.
skipped over the part where he was going to shoot this person, and they essentially died because of him.
So fun fact, the cop that was driving was actually Dick Warlock, who, plays Michael Myers. And he actually did that stunt with like no safety gear except for like a seatbelt where they, slammed the car into the van and it exploded. But yeah, we'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag now. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie. It's like 40 years old, but I get it if you haven't seen it. This guy is not Michael Myers. It was just a kid named Ben Tramer who was, for some fucking reason, dressed exactly like Michael Myers. He was a little tipsy. He was heading home from a party. Also, if that name sounds familiar, it is because Ben Tramer is the kid Laurie admitted to having a crush on in the last movie, which is a pretty cool little detail.
Well, also, if you're familiar with the Rob Zombie movies, Ben Tramer is a decently significant character in the first one. Ben
I didn't,
Ben
I don't
yeah.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Tramer is the kid that Danielle Harris, her character who plays
Oh, yeah,
Laurie's
yeah.
best friend, she
Mhm.
calls and she's like, "I told Ben Tramer you had a crush on him." And she's like, "Oh my god," like, she's mad at first, but then she's like, "Well, what'd he say?" And she makes the comment like, he said, "That's cool," or some lame shit like that. But yeah, Ben Tramer.
Yeah. So, as Brackett helps this other cop up, a very concerned Loomis stands there staring at who he thinks is Michael Myers burning alive in this fire, which is pretty grim to think about that. Like, they're all just watching this 17-year-old kid burn to a crisp, doing nothing about it. So, after all this shit happens, another cop car quickly pulls up, but is definitely not here about the giant explosion slash vehicular homicide that just occurred, and is actually here to inform Brackett about the bodies they just found, with one of them being Brackett's daughter, Annie, who we saw murdered in the last film. And this cop is Deputy Gary Hunt, who is like the second in command at the Haddonfield Sheriff's Department. And from here on out, he's going to be one of our main characters. I just fucking love he pulls up, tells them this, and they all just jump in this fucking car and just leave like this didn't even happen. Like,
Yep.
nobody calls for fire trucks or nothing. They just leave.
Yep.
Fuck this dude.
Yeah. It's really fucked up, man,
Yeah.
especially from Dr. Loomis, who was I mean, I wonder if, like, it even crossed his mind when he found out that that wasn't Michael Myers, that he was going to murder.
No, Loomis is 100% obsessed with stopping Michael Myers, whether people get killed in the process or not.
Yes, he is very much like, if he caused just as many people to die as Michael Myers was going to cause,
Does it can't cancel it out?
he's like, "It's okay because
It was for a good
I
reason.
stopped him."
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
I gotta do this for my book.
the dude would not have given a flying fuck if he would have found out after the fact, and he would have been like, "Well, this is Michael's fault. This is what pure evil does."
Yep, caused me to do that. So we then cut back to Brackett, Hunt, and Loomis all arriving at the house as they are carting Annie's body out, and needless to say, Brackett is pretty fucked up by this, prompting Deputy Hunt to tell him to go on home and he will take over the search for Michael, which is pretty much the end of Sheriff Brackett in this film. We also see tons of news reporters and residents standing outside, where one reporter overhears Loomis telling Hunt that he shot Michael 6 times and
6
and he
times.
didn't die, and that also wasn't him in the fire, which I just want to point out, right when this scene starts, we see another reporter already reporting that Michael died in the car explosion. That just happened like 5 fucking minutes ago. How would they know that?
Well, the reporters were already on scene based off of the bodies being found. So, they were, like, pulling up, and then they see this, somebody dressed in the same description as Michael Myers who was out killing people. They probably just put 2 and 2 together
Well,
and
that doesn't
seen
happen right where the reporters are, because that's why they have to get in the car and drive off, like it happens in another part of the neighborhood.
I know, but you gotta think the reporters are probably flooding into this area,
That just feels a
and
little fast for me.
and now I actually I like that they put that in the movie. I like that they put that, 'cause that's very realistic, with the reports already, you know, saying that there's a good chance that Michael Myers was killed and died in a fire.
30 seconds
Uh
ago, Michael Myers died.
Yeah, I like it because it shows that, when big news things like this happen, there's a lot of false information that gets spread very quickly, and
This is how.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
exactly how it happens.
Also, I fucking love Loomis in this movie. The whole movie, people keep blaming him for, like, letting Michael out of the mental hospital, and he never lets up that he did not let him out.
He
He's
also never, like, gets too mad either. Like
No, he's just like, I didn't I didn't let him out, like, I told him he was evil, like, I didn't do it.
yeah. Like, I told him that he needed to be restrained.
Because, like,
And
like, if you're asked, like, the same thing repeatedly by different people, you eventually your answers get shorter and shorter where you're just like, "I just don't care."
it it
He never lets up.
it's very much like when the cop says it to him in the car, he gives off the vibe that he is been blamed for this so many times by this point, I guess during the process of the first movie. So, in movie time over the past 24 hours, he's just like, just shaking his head like, "Nope, nope, nope,
"Nope,
not taking any more of this.
wasn't me,
I
motherfuckers."
told you fuckers it wasn't me."
So after Loomis fails to have any situational awareness and pretty much tells every news station in Haddonfield that Michael can't be killed and is still on the loose, him and Hunt then decide to go to the coroner's office to see if they can identify the body of the kid that just died in the explosion. We then cut to a random parking lot where we see two women named Karen Bailey and her friend Darcy walking to a car after leaving a Halloween party. Karen, despite being late to work at the hospital, agrees to take her friend Darcy home as we then see them drive away. After that, we also see a guy walking through the same parking lot holding a boombox while listening to the news reports about the murder, when he suddenly runs into Michael, who happens to overhear on the radio that Laurie has been taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. So basically, Michael knows where Laurie is now, and he's making a beeline straight for her. So we then cut back to the hospital where we see that the small staff is glued to the TV and very concerned about this murderer on the loose. And speaking of that, we also see that Michael has arrived. I gotta say, man, this movie does such a great job of showing how Michael is kind of terrorizing Haddonfield, which we really didn't get to see in the first film. And this kind of reaction from the town is seen or talked about in most of the movies that follow. So I think they did a very good job at setting that up for the rest of the franchise. Also, really cool to see, kind of what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Haddonfield is gripped by this right now.
Yeah. There's a point in this movie where they show up at the Myers house, and there's just a mob of people out there just chucking rocks and stuff through the window.
Evil dies tonight.
Yeah, at first I was like, why would they go to this fucking house that he lived in when he was a little kid and like start rioting outside? And then it kind of occurred to me because right after this, Loomis mentions this whole murder happened 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the people in this neighborhood remember when Michael Myers murdered his family at 6 years old, and that he has escaped. Like 15 years, really, in the grand scheme of things, is not that long. Like a lot of these people were teenagers when this happened. They remember
Yeah.
it very
They
well.
probably went to school with his sister.
Yep. And then for him to, get out and come back to this neighborhood and start murdering people again. Yeah, there's some people that's pissed off, and it makes a lot more sense.
By the way, we get this next scene right here. It's really short, but is Bud the paramedic smoking a J in the hospital break room? Like, what the fuck? He
Yeah,
looks like he's smoking a joint.
either that or a lot of people rolled their own cigarettes back then.
I
I don't know if you remember, especially like in the 90s growing up, there was people who were diehard on rolling their own tobacco.
I hope that's the case because you can't just like fire up a doobie in a fucking hospital.
Well, especially back then, but you could smoke in the hospital. That
Yeah,
was
it's
a
true.
very, very, very common thing. So either A, he rolled his own cigarettes and he was just smoking and nobody thought anything of it, or everybody's so used to seeing people smoke that nobody thought anything of it when this guy smoked a joint.
Well, I mean, it would line up because, like, the only doctor working here tonight is drunk.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
So we then check in with some of our hospital staff who are watching the live news coverage of the hunt for Michael Myers. And we see here that Bud thinks everyone is getting a little too worked up over this escaped mental patient thing, which pretty much guarantees that Michael will kill him in the very near future. Another thing that we see here is Jimmy has taken a liking to Laurie, prompting him to visit her in her room multiple times. And on one of these visits, he tells her some of the stuff that he has learned about her attacker from the news, which, I had honestly forgotten that when Laurie is attacked in the first one, she knows absolutely nothing about Michael Myers.
Yeah. Yeah, she's very confused.
Upon learning about Myers' identity and past, Laurie then looks Jimmy in the eyes and asks the question multiple times, "Why me?" Which we will
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
Yeah, they definitely were setting those scenes up for what was then a big reveal on
Mm,
the brother and sister thing, but they started planting those seeds very early in the movie.
it's like Laurie Strode, I am your father. One thing I've always felt that didn't get answered here is where the fuck are the Strodes, man? Like, they went to this Halloween party, the same one as the Dr. Mixter, but he claims that they had already left by the time he left to come to the hospital. Then later on, Nurse Alves tells Lori they keep calling her house, but there's like nobody home. Like, I don't know what the fuck happened. I did try to look it up, and there is never an answer given, except for we know that they didn't die because Lori does talk about having a falling out with them over not telling her she was Michael's sister. So they don't die, but nobody can get a hold of them, and nobody knows where they are during the course of this movie. So while once again the nurse tries to call the Strode, she discovers that the phones are now not working. This prompts her to inform the security guard, Mr. Garrett, to go check outside on the phone lines and see if something is wrong. And while he is out there, he notices the lock on one of the doors is broken, causing him to believe that somebody has broken in. While heading inside to investigate, he radios Nurse Janet, informing her that someone needs to drive down to the sheriff's station for some backup. But unfortunately, the radio signal is weak, causing Janet to not get the whole message. This gets quickly interrupted, though, as Garrett hears a sudden noise coming from one of the storage rooms in the back. But when he goes to check it out, he opens the door to an avalanche of cardboard boxes. Despite jump scaring him at first, Garrett breathes a sigh of relief, believing that the noise was caused by an overpacked closet. But right as he shuts the door, Michael slams the sharp end of a hammer into the top of his head, killing him instantly.
Yeah, this guy's fucking awful. Like, there's a reason he is a security guard and not a real cop. First, a stray cat almost gives this man a fucking
Very close. Yes.
death-inducing heart attack. Like, he falls on his ass and everything. We did get a quick shot of some blood, though, in the trash can, which gives us some indication that Michael has been here. I think that was a little hint that gets overlooked because of the whole cat situation.
Yeah, yeah.
But not only does he almost die over a stray cat in the trash can, but the dude is checking all of these lockers that have the locks open, but they're put back on the little lock
Which
mechanism,
Michael wouldn't be able
which
to do
no
if
yeah,
he was in there.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, like, that would be my first thought is, okay, nobody's in there because they couldn't put the lock back on, but also, if they did, they're now locked in there. Like, whether the lock is actually closed or not, it is a metal lock on this lock mechanism. There's no way for them to get out. Guy never thinks of that, apparently, because before he takes this hammer to the head, he decides to check, like, every closet in there.
So after that, we then jump to the medical examiner's office where the doctor is trying to establish if the man who was killed by the cop car van explosion is in fact Michael Myers. And because nobody tried to stop the fire at all, the body is so burnt it can only be identified by dental records, which will take all night. Because of this, Loomis recommends they continue the search just in case this isn't Michael, and Deputy Hunt agrees. I gotta say, I really like Deputy Hunt. He is a good horror movie cop. Normally, at this point, the cops are like, fuck that, we got our guy, we're shutting this shit down. But Hunt gives Loomis everything he's asking for in order to catch Michael.
Well, I think a lot of that is the fallout from the first movie because they don't take him very serious at first when he's trying to alert
Yeah.
them that it is Michael Myers. And now they just discovered all the bodies from Michael Myers' killing spree. So they're kind of like, okay, we didn't take this guy very serious at first. We're going to kind of we're going to take everything he says very serious because it really fucked us.
Because Brackett fucked up.
Yeah.
So Hunt and Loomis then head to the Myers house where a large, pissed off crowd has gathered, throwing rocks at the abandoned residence. While there, two teenage boys show up to tell the cops that their friend Ben Tramer, who was wearing a Myers like mask, didn't arrive home despite leaving the party an hour ago. And this is where Loomis and Hunt realize that the dead body is most likely not Myers. Uh, Loomis handles almost shooting and ultimately getting a teenage boy killed pretty well here. He is more upset that Myers is still on the loose than the fact that this innocent kid was burned to death.
Yeah, hit by a car running from him
Yeah.
and then burned to death.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he is 100% has
No remorse.
he's awful. Like, I love Dr. Loomis. I love the continuity of Dr. Loomis throughout the whole series. Donald Pleasance came back and played this character amazingly over and over again, but I will say he's pretty awful in parts of I mean, the whole franchise, like, with the whole writing the books, and he's very much not a good guy.
I
Uh,
shot him 6 times. Anyway, right after this, another cop runs up and informs the men that a break in was just reported at the local school and is suspected to have been Myers. This news sends the men quickly running towards the cars where they speed off. We then get this weird fever dream thing that Laurie is having, which shows Mrs. Strode telling a young Laurie that she isn't her real mother, which then cuts to her visiting a teenage boy in a mental hospital while quick cuts of dripping blood are spliced into the scene. And this is obviously put in to support the sister reveal coming up. Next, we jump to Bud convincing Nurse Karen to sneak away for a bit to have sex in the therapy room hot tub, where we get our first and only shot of boobs in the film, which is, I think, this might be one of the shots that Carpenter went back in and reshot because he knew what the fans wanted.
yeah, he's like, "Sorry, Deborah, but we gotta get some titties in there." I
It's
don't even know if they were still together at this point by Halloween 2. I don't think they were. I think they may have just had a working relationship at this point. But, yeah, he's like, "We gotta get the titties in there."
it's a pretty simple formula, man. Scary killer, good kills, nice set of boobs. There we go. That's all we need. So while things get hot and heavy in the hot tub, we see Michael sneak in and crank the heat up big time, causing the water to near 110 degrees. This quickly becomes way too hot for Karen, where she forces Bud to get out and go check the settings. While he is in the other room doing that, Karen gets out and covers up with a towel when suddenly in the background we see Michael sneak up behind Bud and begin strangling him until he is dead.
Bro, Bud is so horny, he doesn't realize that he's starting to boil alive.
It's
Like,
true.
she is like, "I gotta get out of here, it's too hot," and he doesn't wanna get out. Like, he is literally so mesmerized by those titties
They're very nice.
and the prospect of getting some ass here. He literally is like, "I'm willing to boil alive for it."
Also, he gets murdered naked.
Yep.
That would suck, like, just lying there with your dick all out and, but rigor mortis does affect the penis sometimes, not in all cases. So
Postmortem
you
erection.
very well might be laying there with a raging hard on when they find you.
Well, so funny backstory about this scene. The guy who plays Bud, they did not initially want him to play the character because he had a very northeastern accent, almost like Jersey-like accent, and the director pushed really hard for him to get
Yeah,
this part.
big fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So it comes to the day of shooting, and the girl who plays Karen does not, I think her name's Pamela in real life, the actress's name. I don't remember her full name off the top of my head, but she is like, no, she's backed out. She's like, I'm not doing it nude. They're freaking out on set. They called her agent. They've called her manager. Like they don't know what to do. She agreed to do the scene, and then she gets really nervous day of. She's like, "I'm not doing it." And the guy who plays Bud is pretty much naked. He's in a Speedo up until it's time to shoot his scene, and they tell him like, "Hey, we're talking to her. We almost got her on the ropes. If you can go in there and just talk to her." So prior to this, he is getting in this tub and the water is freezing. He's like, "It's literally like ice water. It's
Mhm.
not cold at all." He's like, "I looked down and my dick was a raisin." He's like, "It's literally so cold. My dick had shriveled up to a fucking raisin. It was absolutely tiny." And he went and talked to her with a tiny shriveled up dick. And I guess that helped him talk her into doing the scene because she's like, he's like, "Well, you're gonna look great doing the scene. Look at me."
That's funny. That's great. So Bud, he gets killed, but because she is facing away from the door, Karen doesn't see it, allowing Michael to walk up behind her, placing his hand on her shoulder, and she, of course, thinks this is the extra horny paramedic who is probably pretty upset that she just gave him a diagnosed case of blue balls. So once she thinks Bud is pissed, she starts kissing and like licking his hand, which, I've mentioned before, that grosses me out. Like, I don't, your hands have germs on them. Don't put them in your mouth.
Yeah, not to mention Michael
Yeah,
Myers'
it's even
hands.
worse.
Like, at least the other guy's like an EMS. I mean, he seems like a gross dude, but like, you gotta think he's done went through a murder spree. He's got blood on his hands. They're dirty. He feet him fell off the balcony and fell into the dirt. He's went through the trash at the hospital at this
Mhm.
like, his hands are probably so gross and blood soaked, and she starts sucking on his finger, and I guess just thinks Bud's gross. Yeah, this is Bud.
Michael obviously doesn't like the hand kissing either, as we
Kinda
see
gets freaked out.
he,
He's like, "I don't know."
he like angrily jerks his hand away, causing her to quickly spin around where it is revealed to not be Bud. She then lets out a frantic scream as Michael grabs her head with both hands and forces her face into the scalding hot water. Now, he's not necessarily trying to drown her here, as we see him every few seconds pull her head back out so she can get air, but each time we see her face, the skin looks more and more damaged from the extremely hot water. Honestly, I love this. It's an awesome kill. It reminds me a lot of the kill from the kitchen in My Bloody Valentine with like the hot dog pot, which
Oh, yeah.
coincidentally came out the same year.
Yeah, that one was done really good too, as what a boiled face would probably look like. Both of these movies did a great job with that effect. I love this kill. Like, I absolutely fucking love this kill. The fact that he's dunking her head, but still letting her come up for air, and then dunking her head again shows that he doesn't wanna drown her. He wants her to die from boiling
Mhm.
in this fucking water, and that shit's just so savage to me.
Yeah. Yeah, good kill. So after this goes on for about 30 seconds or so, we see Karen finally die, where Michael then throws her on the floor, nipples first, where we get a nice little close-up of the bloody, white, damaged skin. Just like Randy said last week, rule number 1, no sex. It is the cardinal sin of slashers.
Also, so premarital sex, definitely can't do that, as
Mhm.
you just pointed out, but drugs, and you mentioned you pretty sure he lit up a J.
Well, there's also, too, like it doesn't get mentioned in Scream, but another rule is when you're the one guy in the movie who doesn't believe everyone about the killer, you're gonna get killed. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a
Well,
given.
I don't even know if he doesn't believe it. I mean, I think he believes it. He's just so motivated by getting laid. He doesn't give a fuck. He's like, "I'm gonna fuck one of these nurses tonight. I've already decided,
Yeah. Well,
and
I mean,
I
he
don't care.
does come close.
I don't care how many people's getting killed. None of that matters to me."
So next we head over to the school where we see Deputy Hunt, Loomis, and another cop checking out the broken window that Michael used to get inside, where he then stabbed his butcher knife into a child's drawing of a little girl and her family. I I guess he's like, I don't need this knife anymore. I'll just leave it at the closest school. After
Yeah,
that,
I didn't really get that.
no. After that, they then find written in blood on the chalkboard a word that only Loomis is familiar with, which I find it hilarious that they pronounced it wrong. Nobody bothered to look into that apparently. So they pronounce it Samhain, but it's actually pronounced Samhain, which is a pagan holiday known as being the celebration of the end of the harvest. But according to Loomis here, it means Lord of the Dead / the end of summer.
Yeah, so Samhain is a big part of part 3, and I think that somebody probably went to John Carpenter and Deborah Hill and said, "Hey, this is not pronounced right. You guys completely fucked this up
Yeah,
by calling it Samhain. It's actually pronounced Samhain because they get this right in part 3."
yeah.
And considering that, like, John Carpenter went through and did all the edits and the reshoots and stuff and put out the final product, obviously he thought Sam Hain was how it was pronounced.
Yeah, it's spelled like that. I mean, I get it, but if you're gonna put it in a movie, you should probably look into it. So this gets quickly interrupted when a woman walks into the doorway asking to speak to Dr. Loomis. And you might recognize this lady. Her name is Marion Chambers, and she is the one who was driving Loomis to Smith's Grove in the very beginning of the first movie when Michael escapes. And if I remember correctly, I believe she was arguing with Loomis about Michael being evil. I think. One weird thing, though, is he says he almost didn't recognize her here, but didn't Michael escape the fucking day before? So
Yeah.
he was in the car with her like 30 hours ago?
Well, it wasn't the day before, because in the first movie, I think it takes place over a couple days, a day or 2. So, yeah, but it's been a couple days. I don't know why he wouldn't recognize her.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't, I don't know, it didn't really make sense why he couldn't recognize her. I mean, worst case scenario, he's seen her 48 hours ago. So they walk out into the hallway and she informs him that he has been ordered back to Smith's Grove effective immediately. At first, Loomis scoffs at this, proclaiming they can't order him to do shit, but she says no, but the governor can, and he just did. She then informs him that the news has traveled all over the state and they don't want any Smith Grove employees in Haddonfield. So Loomis tells her there is no way he can just leave Haddonfield with Michael still running around killing people, and for her to call the governor and just say that she couldn't find him. But she immediately shoots this idea down, telling him there is a U.S. Marshal here ready right now to bring him back to Smith's Grove. We then cut to Loomis and Marion walking to the Marshal's car when Deputy Hunt then tells him not to worry, that they will continue to look for Michael and do everything they can to find him. Back at the dark, abandoned hospital of death, Jimmy heads into Laurie's room for the 14th time tonight and tells her that he isn't going to let anything else happen to her. But while in there, he notices that even though her eyes are wide open, Laurie isn't looking at him or responding, prompting him to realize that something is wrong and call for the nurses. After discovering Laurie has had some kind of bad reaction to the medication, putting her into some kind of trance, Nurse Janet runs to the office to alert Dr. Mixter, but when she gets no answer at the door, she heads inside where she hears the shower running. She then continues yelling his name, but still doesn't get a response, prompting her to look into the bathroom where she realizes that he isn't in there either. She then heads into the side room where she spots him sitting in his bathrobe, staring at a fish tank, and despite the fact that she is only a few feet away, she still doesn't get a response from him. At this point, I'd be like, "Oh, he's fucking dead."
Yeah, Dr. Mixture needs a fucking doctor.
Yeah.
ASAP.
She then reaches over the desk and spins the chair around where she spots a fucking syringe sticking out of his eyeball, officially making Dr. Mixter the next victim of the Shape. I believe this was another addition by John Carpenter, I think, or at least the idea maybe for the syringe in the eye. This immediately frightens Janet as she places her hand over her mouth and slowly starts to back away from the body when we suddenly spot part of Michael's mask illuminated behind her. As soon as she bumps into him, she turns and lets out a shriek when he then grabs her head, sticking a needle into her temple and slowly pushes it in as deep as it will go, while holding his hand over her mouth until she finally dies. Rest in peace, Nurse Janet.
Well, I just want to point this out. So I know that the Halloween Scream Factory box set that I have came out quite some time ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. But, they did like a making of Halloween 2, and the woman who plays Nurse Janet is in this. And this woman has aged better than anything I've ever seen.
Really?
Like, while all the other cast members and stuff look around the same age, which is pretty old at this point, she could have passed for late 20s. Like, I
Wow.
had to look it up to figure out who she was and then rewind and find her name on there and the title card of the character she played. She looks incredible.
Yeah. Wow. I have to
She
look into
is
that.
super fucking hot.
Wow. So back in Laurie's room, Nurse Jill and Jimmy are waiting for the doctor, but after a few minutes, Jimmy decides that he is going to go find Nurse Alves to look at Laurie, leaving Jill by herself. While he is doing that, Michael uses a room buzzer to lure Jill away to another room down the hall while he sneaks into Laurie's room to kill her. While standing next to the bed, he raises a scalpel up and begins to stab her multiple times, but quickly discovers that Laurie isn't there and this is just a bunch of pillows. We then cut to a still drugged up Laurie stumbling down the hallway, attempting to find a hiding spot or a way to call for help. She then finds an empty room where she grabs the phone and collapses on the floor, but quickly discovers the phone lines are still dead. She then closes the door, huddles into a ball, and kind of passes out for a while. We then cut back to Jill, who has discovered Laurie missing from her room, prompting her to run to the security desk to inform Mr. Garrett about the missing patient. But once she arrives, she realizes that, just like all her other coworkers, Mr. Garrett is also missing. This causes Jill to seriously suspect something weird is going on here, and she needs to find somebody that can help her find Laurie. When she suddenly feels a hand on her shoulder, but when she spins around, she sees Jimmy, who immediately informs her that he can't find anybody, and it appears that the head nurse is gone. After putting two and two together, Jimmy tells Jill that they should split up, because that always works out for people in horror movies. And she needs to get into her car, drive down to the sheriff's station, and get them to come out here while he continues looking for Laurie. Unfortunately for them, though, Michael is creeping around the corner listening to their whole plan.
Yeah, one of my favorite shots of this entire movie is when they're sitting there talking, and in the room that she just peeked into is the silhouette of Michael Myers with the fucking lights from outside shining behind him on a curtain, and we get a awesome silhouette shape of the shape himself standing there listening to their whole plan, and it's very much in the background, but it's not one of those things that's so in the background you can't find it. If you know it's there, you'll find it. It is a very, very, very cool shot as far as cinematography.
Yeah, absolutely awesome shot. I had it in my notes too, the same exact spot. That little silhouette back there kind of behind them while they're having this conversation is very much something that we would see in the first one, which is why one of the things I love about the first one.
Yep, and that's, what I go back to the continuity of being able to get the same cinematographer for this movie to set up these shots. I think had you not been able to get the same cinematographer and a lot of the same background people that worked on the movie, although this sequel is nowhere near as good as the original, it's still you can watching it, you can tell that it is a Halloween movie, and because of things like this, it stands as a successful sequel in my book.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, like I said, I think that they kind of complement each other because there are some things that are different, but they also have some things that are the same. And I think that's what makes this a good sequel.
yeah, also in the original credits, Michael Myers is the Shape.
Mhm.
That's what they put him as, and that caught on as Michael Myers' nickname. By this point, when the movie came out, people knew of Michael Myers as the Shape. So to have the awesome silhouette shape in the background, I thought was like a really cool shot and kind of a cool node to that.
So after this, Jimmy starts checking a different part of the hospital where he ends up finding Nurse Alves laying on a gurney in one of the surgery rooms. Once he heads in, he notices she appears to be strapped down and she has an IV needle in her arm, allowing all of her blood to drain out, which is a really unique kill, I think.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get to see this because at some point, Michael Myers literally tied her down to a gurney, successfully
Found a
hit,
vein.
yeah, found a vein with an IV, and then drained all of the blood from her body while she was fighting with him because she was clearly awake when this happened based off of how they find her body. Man, I wish we would have got that scene.
Yeah, I think they just didn't because it would kind of take too long. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just imagine Michael like down there on one knee, like with his arm, and he's like, it took him like 6 different tries to get a vein.
Yeah, I think they probably didn't just because of the amount of gore that it would have been a little over the top for what they wanted to do. I know John Carpenter wanted to add some gore, but he didn't want to go so over the top that it wasn't a Halloween movie. And I could imagine that him strapping this nurse that's fighting him down to this gurney and sticking this needle in and then blood literally pouring all over the place was probably a little more than they wanted to go.
So after inspecting the body, Jimmy then goes to leave, totally stunned by what he just found, when he then suddenly slips in the blood, causing him to go down hard, hitting his head and knocking him unconscious. The camera then zooms out, revealing the whole entire floor completely covered in Nurse Alves' drained blood, with a knocked out Jimmy laying right in the middle of it.
Yeah, Jimmy sucks.
Another really good shot there.
Yeah, really cool shot, but damn, Jimmy, like this guy's kind of lame. Like he gets like obsessed with Laurie Strode. So kind of drives her nuts. Like I wonder if she was really like comatose and out of it, or she was just faking to get
Trying
Jimmy out
to
of
get
her
rid of
fucking
him.
room. And yeah, then he manages to find this nurse, realizes that he's standing in a puddle of blood, turns around and somehow still falls and knocks himself the fuck out.
Yeah. So after that, we then cut to Jill, who is out in the parking lot attempting to start her car, and after a few tries, she realizes that it is a no-go. She then gets out to look at it, and this is where she notices that her tires are also flat along with every other car in the parking lot. This causes Jill to be like, fuck this, I'm out, as she then quickly takes off running back into the hospital to find Jimmy. Next, we jump back to Laurie, who has finally come to, and when she gets up and leaves the room, she is spotted by Jill, who immediately shouts her name. A still hazy Laurie then turns around and sees Jill standing at the end of the hall, when suddenly Michael walks up behind her, quickly stabbing her in the back with his scalpel and lifting her into the air. Once Jill dies, he drops her on the ground and starts walking towards Laurie, who kind of snaps out of it and starts stumbling down the hallway as fast as she can. She ends up finding the stairs where she heads down towards the basement, but despite her running and Michael walking, Michael stays hot on her trail. Once down there, she ends up finding most of the doors locked except for the one that leads to the maintenance room, but once inside, she discovers the dead body of Mr. Garrett hanging from a pipe above.
Did Michael just
My,
try to pull a Jason Voorhees?
yeah, but it wasn't like a trap.
It
She didn't
wasn't.
hit a tripwire and he fell.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I had in my notes here. He's definitely no Jason when it comes to rigging up bodies. Like he did rig this up, but because at first I'm like, okay, he stashed the body in the boiler room so nobody would find it. But no, he did rig this body up. It just wasn't a Jason Voorhees level. Like it fell out of the fucking pipes, and he tried, man. At least he tried. I will say though, backtracking a little bit, Jill's kill was awesome. Like we get this really cool shot of her being held up by Michael with just one arm after he stabs her in the back with this scalpel, and obviously she's being held up by some supports here behind the scenes. But yeah, the shot down the hallway of him holding her body up with one hand, I thought was really cool.
I found it kind of lackluster myself.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, man. It just was too. I'm like the lifting up was cool, but other than that, we really didn't see anything. We didn't really
Well,
get anything from it.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the part of them not wanting to add too much gore where it didn't feel like the original movie at all, but still adding some of that like subhuman murder that a lot of the slashers had at this time, which was like a lot of gore. And yeah, I don't know, man. I thought it was, the one thing I don't like about it is the scalpel. I hate that he ditches this
That's
knife in the school.
that's a huge issue
And
for me with this kill in particular.
yeah, and it's he takes us around the whole hospital with him.
Yeah,
Like, he ditches his big ass butcher knife that became synonymous with the character after the success of the first one. Although we don't see a lot of gore, he uses this knife a lot. I mean, at one point, he pins somebody to the fucking wall with it in the original,
yeah.
and he ditches that for this tiny little scalpel that he uses throughout the movie, and I never understood why he ditched the knife in the first place.
Yeah, I don't either. So after that, she spots Michael coming around the corner and starts looking for an escape, but the only thing she sees is a very small window up by the ceiling. She then breaks the glass and climbs through the tiny opening, crashing down on a stack of boxes on the other side. But she's not down for long as we see her quickly jump up and run around the corner where she spots an elevator that is unfortunately on the second floor at the moment. So while she is waiting for it to come back down, she turns to see Michael slowly walking in her direction, still holding the scalpel. I do want to mention this really fast. I was praying that we would get a shot of Michael crawling through that tiny window and falling down on the other side. Obviously, they skipped that because it would have been fucking stupid and funny, but that's the only way he got in there.
Yeah, I just want to point out, like, there's a window in this room that leads to another room.
It makes
That
no sense.
not instead of leading outside,
Yeah.
it leads to a storage room.
Yeah.
Like, literally makes no sense.
So anyway, just as Michael is a few feet away, the doors finally open where Laurie runs inside, and right as he reaches in to stab her, the door shuts on his hand, forcing him to pull it back, saving Laurie from certain death. So after heading back to the main floor, Laurie books it outside into the parking lot where she crawls into the first car she sees to hide, but she is quickly startled as Jimmy, who is now covered in blood, sits inside and attempts to start the car. Once he realizes that it's been sabotaged, he slowly looks over where he spots a frightened Laurie hiding in the floorboard. Obviously, still suffering from that hard fall he took earlier, he then passes back out where his head slams on the horn, letting Michael know exactly where they are, forcing Laurie to pull him off. So we next jump on over to Loomis, Marion, and the marshal, where we see Marion apologizing to Loomis and then informs him that there was a hidden file he was never told about. And after Michael escaped and went on a killing spree, the governor had it unsealed and read, where it revealed that Michael had a baby sister that was put up for adoption, and her name is Laurie Strode. So obviously, Michael has returned all of these years later to murder his other sister. This gives Loomis an idea. He then quickly asked where they took Laurie after the attack, and once the marshal informs him that they are only 3 miles away from the hospital, Loomis pulls out his gun, fires a round through one of the windows, and demands the marshal take him to Haddonfield Memorial. Loomis is back in the game. He is off the bench.
Yeah, I love how Dr. Loomis is going on this whole rant about pure evil and, as he would call it, Samhain, and how it's like trying to make this connection with Samhain and pure evil and all this shit. And it's so clear that he's got this book in his head.
He's
Like,
already wrote most of it.
he is literally talking as if you were reading a book. Like, they're probably so tired of listening to him talk. And when she goes to tell him the big reveal, like, it's almost like he doesn't want to hear any of it.
He's like, I already know.
He's
She's
like,
like,
I'm.
you don't know this. What if it was revealed that it was actually Loomis who broke into the school and wrote that on the board just to add this book?
That literally would not surprise me.
So after that, we then cut back to Jimmy's car where Laurie opens the door and falls out, and while laying on the ground, she suddenly sees the marshal's car pull up to the front door as Marion, Loomis, and the marshal run inside. Laurie tries to yell for them but can't summon the energy in time, and this forces her to stand up and attempt to make it to the door, when she suddenly gets a burst of energy as she looks behind her and spots Michael coming her way. Once she arrives at the entrance, she realizes it's locked, prompting her to start banging on the glass and screaming for help. Loomis and Marion hear this and come running, quickly unlocking the door and letting her in. Loomis makes sure to lock the door back, but Michael's not going to let that stop him as we see him just walk right through the door, shattering the glass everywhere, heading straight for Laurie. Thankfully, though, Loomis already has his gun aimed as we then see him fire 5 shots right into Michael's chest. Michael then collapses on the floor, appearing to be dead. The marshal then comes running down the hallway asking what happened when he soon spots Michael with 5 bloody bullet holes in his coveralls, dead on the floor. And right as he goes to check for a pulse, Loomis screams at him, telling him to stay away, ordering Marion to run outside and call for backup on the radio. Loomis then turns to a very upset Laurie asking if she's all right, and while he comforts her, the marshal notices Michaels has stopped breathing. Assuming that he is dead, he goes to check the body and remove the weapon. Loomis then yells at him again, and when the marshal turns around, Michael grabs him, flips him over, and slices his neck, killing him. And that is unfortunately the second person Loomis has gotten killed tonight.
Yeah, not to mention Dr. Loomis literally has his gun drawn before the marshal's even flipped over and his throat's cut. So Dr. Loomis has literally like a good 3 or 4 seconds to shoot Michael. And it made me wonder if Dr. Loomis did not stop the marshal from being killed because now he's not in a whole lot of trouble.
That's a good
Like,
point.
he let this marshal get murdered by Michael Myers because he's like, "Whew, I was looking at a lot of federal prison time.
Yeah,
Now nobody's gonna know."
that's a good point. After this, Michael stands up and starts after Loomis and Laurie, causing them to take off running down the hallway where they then attempt to hide in one of the surgery rooms. But it is no use because Michael quickly finds them, and right before he breaks down the door, Loomis gives Laurie the marshal's revolver as they prepare to fight the boogeyman again. Once Michael's inside, Loomis tries to shoot him in the head, but is stunned when the gun just goes click, causing Michael to stab him in the gut with the scalpel, sending Loomis stumbling backwards and collapsing to the floor, leaving only Laurie left to stop him as she huddles scared in the corner of the room. He then suddenly slowly starts walking towards her, still holding the bloody scalpel in his hand, when she then yells for him to stop right before she fires 2 rounds, hitting him in the face. Michael then stumbles back, holding his mask right above the nose, and when he removes his hand, we then see blood begin to quickly pour out of his eye holes, immediately blinding him. Now that he can't see, he then starts wildly swinging the blade of the scalpel around the room, attempting to hit Laurie with a lucky shot, even though Laurie is sitting on the fucking floor right in front of him. This goes on for way too long as we just sit and watch him stumble around, swinging his knife, when finally Loomis recovers a little bit, gets up, opens a canister of ether that begins to fill the room with highly flammable gas. Honestly, I fucking hate this part. Not the gas, like that's totally fine. It's the
The
stumbling
swinging.
around for 5 minutes swinging the
Yeah.
scalpel.
Yeah. I agree. I fucking hate the aimlessly swinging this scalpel blade around while he can't see. Like, I thought that was completely stupid. It would even be a little more scarier if he still had his butcher knife, but he is swinging a scalpel. Like, if he nicks her with it, it's not gonna do anything but cut her.
He
Uh,
knows Laurie's sitting down.
yeah, he also, like, turns around and somehow ends up going the complete wrong direction, and then slowly, while swinging the whole time, makes his way back over towards her, and it was just like, Michael Myers is this super intimidating, just, like, pure evil. He's really intimidating, he's really smart. Like, we see through the whole background of this movie, in a way similar to the original movie, kinda where he's in the background the whole time. There's parts of this movie, like, we find the nurse's body, we find he's moved the other guy's body, we find that he has disabled all the vehicles outside.
Mm-hmm.
We get that shot of him, like, his silhouette. So, Michael is around the whole time, but he's always outsmarting and thinking ahead, and it just looks dumb and goofy
Yeah, I
when
agree.
he is, like, desperately swinging this tiny 1-inch scalpel blade around, and it goes on so long.
It's way too long. So anyway, Laurie then joins Loomis, opening up all these canisters of gas, and once they are all hissing, Loomis yells for Laurie to run, to which she does, and after giving her about a 30-second head start, he then pulls out the lighter that he stole from Deputy Hunt earlier, looks Michael right in his cold black eyes, the blackest eyes he's ever seen, and says, "It's time, Michael," as he flicks the lighter, causing the room and part of the hallway to explode into this massive fireball, almost killing Laurie.
I think they almost killed the whole fucking set.
Yeah,
'Cause they said that this explosion was way bigger than what they thought it was gonna be.
yep. After the explosion, Laurie then looks back at the aftermath when she suddenly spots Michael walking towards her, completely engulfed in flames, still holding that goddamn scalpel. Really awesome full body burn, though. I love it. Despite Laurie, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Michael doesn't make it too far as he ends up collapsing in the hallway and continuing to burn. We then jump to a very foggy morning where the fire department has arrived and begun putting out the flames, as well as the sheriff's department, as we see one of the deputies inform Hunt that they have already found 10 bodies so far. Laurie, who is now in a wheelchair, gets carted over to the ambulance as a bunch of news media surrounds her asking for a statement, and once she is loaded into the back, they take off, disappearing into the fog as the song Mr. Sandman begins to play, and that is the end of Halloween 2.
Yeah, I just wanna say the shot of him walking out of the fire is awesome.
Definitely.
It's a super shame that he just falls down, and that's the end of the
And has that
movie.
scalpel.
Yeah, the scalpel. Thank God that didn't become, like, his signature weapon. Like, that's shit's so fucking weak.
Dr.
Uh,
Myers.
I hate that he has that scalpel through most of
Yeah.
the movie.
Mhm.
It's a very weak weapon, not intimidating at all, does not fit his character, and I will say, like, we talked about how much we hated the him swinging the scalpel around prior to getting set on fire and blown up. Dick Warlock also hates that scene. He hated doing it. He thought it was dumb. So Michael himself in this movie also, he said that he still gets people come up, like, at conventions to this day and talk about how, like, they love that scene,
Oh.
and he's like,
You went the opposite way I thought you were
he's
gonna
like,
go.
I don't know why."
Oh,
"I don't know what they see in it, but,
I don't either.
to each their own," but yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Got some quick facts I'll run through real quick. So, speaking of Dick Warlock, he made sure that everyone was safe when they filmed the death scenes. For example, during Leo Rossi, who is Bud, during his death scene where he was strangled from behind, he told him to arch his back and his arms further as he gave 4 tugs, telling him to go limp on the 4th tug, and he would also help cushion his fall. He was
Yeah.
a stunt man, and he did a really good job of helping the actors do their stunts without them, getting hurt as well.
Yeah, so,
Very nice guy.
yeah, I do not like his Michael as much as Nick Castle. I I do think his Michael's great, and I think it's better than a lot of Michaels we got after, but the original Nick Castle, you can't really be better than the guy
Started
who
it, yeah.
literally invented it. And I put Dick Warlock, like, way up there on as far as ranking for people who's played Michael Myers,
I think he did
but
great, yeah.
one thing that really set him up really good for this character is and what they couldn't do in the first is there was a lot of, like, gore and more violent death scenes in this movie, and they needed a stunt guy for that. Very similar to
Friday the
how
13th.
yeah, the
Mhm.
Jasons, they started getting stunt guys to play these characters because they were gonna have to do stunts. And Dick Warlock was not only a stunt man, he was the essentially stunt coordinator on this movie. And you just mentioned one really good example. Another one is the face boiling scene. He said he could not wait to shoot that one because of the kill itself, but, he essentially told her, "Every time you're ready for me to dump your face, push your head back a little bit, and that'll be my nod to put your head underwater, and every time you're ready to come up, do the same thing, and I'll pull you up, and on the 4th one, you're gonna go limp, and I'm gonna throw you down." And it worked out perfect, and for every one of the kills, he literally went through exactly how they were gonna do it and made sure it was done safe, and I thought he was great,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, 100%. So, when Michael gets shot in the eyes at the end, he slashes the scalpel 39 times.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
39
Yep.
times too many.
And the last one is Jimmy's fate is left unclear in the theatrical cut as he simply collapses in his car from a concussion after he slipped in the pool of blood. However, in the alternate ending, he is revealed to have survived with bandages over his head and sharing an ambulance with Laurie to be transported to another hospital.
Yeah, so in the original, the director wanted to do like a kind of surprise ending. He thought those are like really, really good in horror movies, probably off of Friday the 13th, which made that like a staple of slashers of the time. And he sits up in the ambulance, but he's got the sheet over top of him, and it's made to make you think it's Michael Myers behind Laurie Strode sitting up,
Yeah.
and that was supposed to be like the, gotcha at the end, and then the sheet falls off and it's just him. Yeah, he said he didn't know that that scene was not gonna be in the movie until he watched it.
Oh, it should have been. That'd have been a better ending. I would go with that one.
Yeah, if you put that ending in and take out Mr. Sandman and replace it with the Halloween theme, think you got a way, way better ending. I
Yeah.
hated Mr. Sandman.
I don't dislike the song, but I just,
Doesn't fit
it
for
kind of ended pretty quickly where she just gets in the ambulance and they just kind of drive off. But
I think the song is really good for certain movies, but for a Michael Myers movie, it doesn't fit, and it's hard to end a Michael Myers Halloween movie without that awesome theme that is obviously even people who aren't familiar with the franchise knows that that is Halloween's theme. How do you not end it with that?
all right, so ratings and kill count. We got a total of 10 kills. The teen girl who was home alone was stabbed with a butcher knife. Ben Tramer was run over by a cop car, burned to death in an explosion. Mr. Garrett got a hammer to the dome. Bud was strangled to death. Nurse Karen had her face burned in scalding hot water. Dr. Mixter was stabbed in the eye with a needle. Nurse Janet was stabbed in the temple with a needle. Nurse Alves had blood drained and it looked like she might have been strangled. Nurse Jill was stabbed with the scalpel in the back. And number 10 is the marshal who had his neck sliced open. I guess we can't really count Loomis and Michael because they're not really dead. They both show up in Halloween 4. All right, so favorite kill, and I'm up first. I went with Ben Tramer. It was an awesome kill. The fucking explosion was awesome. I wasn't expecting it. It was very sudden. I think it's hilarious too. But the dummy with the fucking fire burning and the very obvious Michael Myers mask was really awesome. And my second is going to be Nurse Karen. The burning, melting of her face skin.
Yeah, I went with Nurse Karen getting her face melted off, and then my second is Ben Tramer.
Oh, so just kind of reversed. All right, so on to rating. I gave this movie a solid 4. I think it is a pretty decent sequel. Is not nowhere as good as the first one to me, but it's kind of doing its own thing in many ways. I think Dick Warlock did a really good job of playing Michael, especially considering Michael is in a lot more of this movie than the previous one. I don't think Donald Pleasance gets enough credit for playing a much more like desperate and fanatic version of Loomis. I think Donald Pleasance kills it in this movie. He's a bright spot in here, and I love what he does with Loomis. I personally don't have an issue with the deserted hospital setting. I know a lot of people hate it, but it works for me because of how fantastic the pacing in this movie is. John Carpenter really sped this thing up. He gave us some good kills, and I don't think that this movie it wouldn't be nowhere near as good if it wasn't for him coming in and doing some things different. I also hate the Laurie being his sister thing. I really wish that never happened. And also the part at the end where he's like blind, I guess. So I did take away some points for that. But overall, I enjoyed it. It's a good sequel. 4 stars for me.
So I gave it a 3.9.
Pretty
There's
close.
there's some things that I love about this movie and some stuff that I am not that big of a fan of. But overall, I think the continuity that they brought made it a really good sequel. It was never gonna top the original,
Yeah.
and I think that John Carpenter was very smart going into it knowing that and kinda changing what he needed to while still making a good slasher and a good Halloween and kinda meeting in the middle. I love that they kept the same style and intro, credit, theme song, whatever you wanna call it, kinda in the beginning of the movie. Dean Cundey, who did the original, did an amazing job with the cinematography. As we talked about earlier, he turned down Poltergeist to do this movie and ended up going on to do a lot of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's movies. He did fantastic. I love the continuity with the look of Michael Myers, even going as far as using the actual hero mask from part 1. I do wish they would have been able to get Nick Castle to do this role, but Dick Warlock, you know, him being a stunt guy, I thought he did a really fantastic job, especially looking behind the scenes and seeing, how much he was involved and making sure everything went down safely. I love the addition of, some slight elements of gore, but not making it too over the top. My biggest complaint with this movie is just the fact that 90% of it takes place in the hospital. I fucking hate that because I feel like it loses a lot of the Halloween October feel. But overall, man, I think it's a good sequel to the
Yeah,
original.
I agree. Well, that is our opinion on Halloween 2. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Unfortunately, Halloween is coming to a close, but we'll be back here next year. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the websites, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or your secret adopted sister that no one really knows about the show. Come on over to the Patreon because we're about to talk a little bit more about Halloween. We hope you guys have a fantastic Halloween. Remember to check your candy for razor blades, and we will catch you next time.